Welcome, family, back to another episode of Cult Stuff and Chill. We're here. We are existing on this mortal plane. Mm-hmm. Halloween season is over, and my spirits are crushed.
All we have to look forward to is, what is it? What is it called? The Wednesday before Thanksgiving?
Oh, Wasted Wednesday? And then Blackout Friday is what my hometown refers to it as. I don't know if that's the direction we were heading in.
Yeah, Blackout Wednesday and Blackout Friday is what we usually call it. So heading towards Blackout Wednesday / Friday. Mm-hmm. And then onto the Christmas season, in which I can only imagine there will be lots of probably infighting.
Oh, yeah. Now, okay, so I took down all of my Halloween decor today. And I just want to put it out there. I think Thanksgiving is the biggest bullshit holiday of the year. I have always hated Thanksgiving. I think it is boring. So boring. I never get to watch the Thanksgiving parade, and that's all I want to do is watch the Thanksgiving parade. And all of the foods that are cooked traditionally at Thanksgiving, I just, do not fuck with. Like, turkey is... Okay, I've had, actually, my brother-in-law smokes his turkey, which is phenomenal. Brent, shout out, my guy. But... as an adult, I've come to find out that all of the foods that I like at Thanksgiving, aka the mac and cheese, all the side dishes, oh my god, my mom makes this really delicious corn pudding stuff, mashed potatoes, I can make for myself any day of the year. Middle of July, fucking Easter, just a random Wednesday. I can make those foods, so why the fuck do I give a shit about Thanksgiving? I don't.
I only care about Thanksgiving because of the mashed potatoes. So my vote is that we just rename it National Mashed Potato Day because Thanksgiving is kind of shady anyways.
Yeah, it really is.
So we just call it National Mashed Potato Day, and then we just get together instead of turkey. We just have mashed potatoes.
Yeah, it's not a present holiday. It's not a party holiday. It's a football. Sorry, guys, I'm not a sports person. It's a football holiday, it's a dry turkey holiday, and it is a holiday where you have to get up earlier than you want. And I'm not going to knock my family because, honestly, they're not bad. Not bad to spend time with, but I just, I don't like Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Although, literally 2 minutes before we started recording this podcast, there's these, ceramic chipmunks that I'm fucking obsessed with. And... my mom had a set growing up, and I remember my grandma having a set as well, and I was when we were on our little trip and looking through those antique stores, I'm like, Ashlee, if you see ceramic Thanksgiving chipmunks, I need a set. And I found them online for $5 on eBay, so on Wednesday, November 10th, those chipmunks will be at my house, and that's the only Thanksgiving decoration I will put up. My trees will be up at the same time, because I'm skipping over this stupid holiday and going straight to Christmas, except for my chipmunks.
When I was a kid, I always thought of Thanksgiving like the color brown, and I hate the color brown. So, yeah.
It's a brown holiday. And you know what brown stands for? Poop. It's a shit holiday.
So let's just turn it into National Mashed Potato Day, and then we can make KFC knockoff bowls, and then also our dream bowl of Chipotle steak. Oh, and mashed potatoes.
Oh, fuck. Oh, we also have some other food-related news. Ashlee and I both copped the cheese calendars from Aldi this year. The advent calendars. So, once again, we're skipping over Thanksgiving because we both tasted our first day of cheese already, so.
I also got the wine calendar and the first bottle. And it's more than it's more than a glass of wine because it's 187 milliliters. Which I think a regular glass of wine is 150 about, usually. So it's more than a glass of wine. It was pretty good. It's in little glass bottles, so if you go and get it, make sure that you pick it up from the bottom or else the bottles might fall out.
Yeah, that's not a vibe.
I'm just going to get wine drunk until Christmas. Realistically, until Thanksgiving.
I should have gotten 2 cheese calendars so that I could just, have... a 40-day Advent season, 50 days, because I guess it's 25. Is it 24 days of cheese?
24.
Or 25? 24, yeah. So 48-day cheese adventure.
Honestly, I would have just copped them both and then just opened them both up and gone on a cheese binge.
You have no idea how tempted I was to take that cheese board that I got in my FabFitFun box and open every single last one of those little tiny cheeses and just like really murder myself with dairy products.
It's like if you're already gonna shit your pants, why not just do it all at once?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna shit myself either once in a big way or 25 times in a small way. So how are we gonna do this next month?
So maybe you should go back and get another cheese.
I mean, I'm really thinking about it, honestly.
Maybe you can build up your cheese tolerance.
I am really happy that I have a partner that is legally bound to me, because I can't imagine that if I was putting out this version of myself to the world before having someone that like was legally obligated to love me, that I would ever find a spouse.
It's like when we were in college and you drink a quart of milk a day.
I would go down to the fucking convenience store at the bottom floor of our goddamn dorm building, get myself a pint of Ben and Jerry's for dinner like 3 to 4 nights a week.
How did
And
you
then
do
all
that?
of a sudden, I don't know, all of a sudden out of nowhere, I just was like, why am I constantly just like, I'm unwell all the time. What the fuck? And I was like, well, you know, when I was about your age, the ice cream, and then I found out that, you know, that was one of my traits that I inherited genetically. So love you, Mom. But of all the things I could have inherited, it was your, you know, dairy sensitivity when it comes to ice cream, and B, the fact that I have half a margarita and get the vapors. So
Is that a technical term, the vapors?
I don't fucking know, but I get all hot in the face and giggly after, like, literally I sniff a bottle of tequila. So I feel like at this point in my life, if I'm drinking, I have to just be committed to the fact that I'm going to have heartburn. And, like, if I know it's going to be, like, a wild night and I'm, you know, with gal pals, aka, or, like, when we went to our fine dining experience, I was like, yep, I'll commit to the bit. I'll suffer through the heartburn and it will be fine. So usually I just don't anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be a special occasion. But yeah, so you're on your wine and I've got some peppermint tea here because that's the life I'm choosing to live today.
Honestly, peppermint tea would probably give me more heartburn than this wine will. Mint, sometimes tea,
Yeah.
sometimes spicy water.
Why is it spicy? I can't do the demon voice for that. Why is it spicy? Mm-hmm. That was perfect.
The water at work for some reason is like off. And it's weird because they put it through one of those like industrial filter cooler machines.
Yeah.
Not like a water cooler, like a jug water cooler. It's like it goes through everything. And I'm like, I don't trust this water. It concerns me.
Oh, geez. So, okay. You sent me a picture earlier this week of the back of that spirit board.
Yeah.
Do you have any explanation for this? And do you want to explain?
I don't have any explanation for it. The only thing that might have happened is that it's like kind of near a window. There's nothing else that had an issue like that. But it's just like, it's just burned on the back of the board. I'm like, okay. Cool. So I don't know if it happened in like transit or something. Maybe while we were traveling, I accidentally set like the straightener on it.
Maybe, but it looked like matches almost.
Yeah.
On it, and we did not have any matches, and I am of the impression that we angered a ghost, and he was like, watch me just get really fucking pissed and light your shit on fire.
Maybe. Or maybe it was my grandma and she's just like, stop asking me stupid questions. Because I could see that too.
That's true. Was your grandma a smoker?
Oh yeah.
Oh, well,
like,
maybe she put out some of her fucking like
ghostly cigarettes on
ghostly
my spirit board.
Yeah.
She's just like marking her territory. She's like, this is mine.
She just took her Virginia Slim and was like,
no, hers was Marlboro Reds shorts. The other thing that happened was that my aunt actually sent me an EVP that they caught.
I didn't ever listen to it.
Oh, it's best with headphones.
What is it saying?
Well, what do you think it's saying?
It does sound exactly like what you said. It would be great if this guy got out.
Yeah. So I think, because then there's another one that follows it up. Yeah, it'd be great if this guy got out. Well, and at the very beginning of because it's like a 3-minute long session that they did. At the very beginning, at like the 30-second mark, you can hear just...
Those ghosts are so done with their shit.
Like, it's not even like a spooky sigh. It's just like get out, bro.
Oh.
We were busy. You came in, you disrupted our ghostly nap. Leave us alone.
Get the fuck out.
So, shout out to my aunt and my cousin, my Aunt Lynn and my cousin Adam for getting some good EVPs. And it was like an old restaurant and apartment building that's been abandoned. And I don't know, maybe they're doing work on it or something. She said she was going to talk to their local historian about it. It was a place that my grandma actually used to live in an apartment when she was 19.
Dang.
So
she got history there.
Yeah. Ashlee story time.
What are you talking about this week?
To start my topic off today, did you or did any of our listeners ever have the Egyptology or vampirology or like wizardology books, like the big pop-up books that had like little inserts and stuff that were written like diaries, but they're like kids' books?
I did not, surprisingly. I know what you're talking about, but I did not own those books.
So I had a version of those books. It wasn't actually like affiliated with them in any way, but when I was a kid, my grandma had a book called Lady Coddington's Pressed Fairy Book, and that was by Terry Jones and Brad Froud, which if you get a chance, you should definitely check it out. But TLDR, it's about a young British lady at the turn of the century who would like smash fairies in her diary. Like they used to press flowers and leaves and stuff. And she smashed fairies, but it's like illustrations, obviously. Mm-hmm. Some of them are being really cheeky, and some of them look like, oh no, you smashed me. But it's definitely not a book for young children because some of them are kind of naked and not necessarily suggestive, but cheeky.
She sounds like a psychopath.
I think the whole thing behind the book was that she was capturing like the psychic images of the fairies or something.
Oh.
I don't know. But it's a cute book. One of the only children geared things that my grandma had, so I would like
obsessed over that freaking book.
Not the same grandma, it's a different grandma. It's a grandma that's still alive. Mm-hmm. But anyways, back to the story. So the inspiration behind this book is actually a real world event, phenomena even, where 2 young girls in turn-of-the-century England took pictures of fairies, and it became an early viral sensation. So the story starts in Coddington near Bradford in England in 1917 with cousins Frances Griffiths and Elsie Wright, who were 9 and 16 respectively. Frances and her mother were recent transplants from South Africa and were staying with Elsie's family while the Griffiths' father was fighting in France during World War I. The girls became fast friends and they often went out to play in the nearby stream, much to their mother's chagrin, as they would come back just like soaking wet, and they were always talking about the fairies that they would see by the stream. Their mothers were of course like, okay, yeah, right. So the girls decided, you know what, we'll prove it to them. They took out Mr. Arthur Wright, who was Elsie's dad. They took out his camera, which is a Midge quarter plate, and they went out for about half an hour and came back victorious. They had captured some fairies on camera.
Woohoo.
Mind you, this was a very labor-intensive shtick because it wasn't like they had a 1-hour photo. It wasn't like they could just pop down to the Walgreens or print these photos out. They had to like hand develop these photos, wait a couple hours in their little dark room, and then pull them out. And I don't know how to develop pictures, but they had to do the whole thing. So it showed a photo of Frances behind a bush while 4 fairies danced in the foreground. Arthur, the dad, who knew just how creative and artistic his daughter Elsie was like, okay, this is fake. This isn't real. These are kids just, having a laugh. These are probably cardboard cutouts. And Elsie knows how to stage photography because she had spent some time working in a photographer's studio. So she knows about composition and she knows how to make stuff look real. And so Elsie, in true girl boss fashion, was like, we're going to go get some more photos and I'll show you. About 2 months later, they take the camera out again and they return with a photo of Elsie sitting on the lawn reaching out to about a 1-foot tall garden gnome. And at that point, the dad, Arthur, is just like, this is bullshit. If you keep screwing around, you're going to break my camera. It's very expensive. This is new technology at the time. So you're grounded. You're not going to get to play with it anymore. However, the moms of the two girls were like, these photos are real. They're really playing with fairies. Around 1919, the photos became public when Elsie's mother attended a lecture on fairy life at the Theosophical Society in Bradford. And this is kind of similar to, like, the Order of the Golden Dawn, but light. Not, like, as intense and not with as much, like, magic stuff. They're just like, we're going to discuss magical, psychic phenomena and stuff. Sure. Elsie's mom, she came with the receipts, she came with the photos, and she took them up to the speaker. And from here, the photos went on to be displayed at the Society's annual conference in Harrogate, where they caught the attention of one of the top dogs of the Theosophical Society, Edward Gardner. He wanted to use these photos to prove one of their tenets that humanity is undergoing a cycle of evolution towards perfection, which honestly sounds a little bit like eugenics with extra steps.
Yeah.
Because if you imagine all these people are super, super white.
And wait, so approximately what year would this have been?
1919.
1919, okay.
The photos underwent expert evaluations and authentications, where the experts determined that the two negatives were entirely genuine, unfaked photographs with no trace whatsoever of studio work involving card or paper models, but they also said we can't prove that these are real fairies. Mm-hmm. And that they didn't appear to be tampered with in a technical way, but they couldn't prove what the fairy forms were. And if you look at the fairies, they're very much like traditional little ladies with wings, looking cute, dancing around. Edward Gardner, he was super pumped to hear this. The fact that the two young girls had not only been able to see the fairies, as many others in the Theosophical Society and elsewhere had done, but that the fairies had manifested at a density sufficient enough to be captured on a photograph, which meant that their next cycle of evolution was underway. And at some point, the human evolution would go somewhere. Again, eugenics. I don't know. These people were weird. After he sort of authenticated them and went through the experts, our old pal spiritualist Sir Arthur Conan Doyle of Sherlock fame got his hands on these photos. And this came at a time when he was struggling to write an article on fairies for the Christmas issue of Strand magazine. And just utterly desperate for some content, he latched onto these photos. And he reached out to Elsie's family and he's like, I will pay you to be able to use these photos. These are proof, rock solid. This is fantastic. This is great for me. Arthur Wright, who was a little starstruck by the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle reaching out to use the photos and of his kid in a really big publication, was like, yeah, you can use them. But he did refuse to accept payment on the off chance that the photos were real. I think at this point he just knew that he was in too deep and he didn't want to crush the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's dreams. But he also didn't want to be liable for any money or any legal action that might be taken against him if he did pay him to use these photos. So he's just like, yeah, you can use these photos. Just, it's just take them. It's fine. Goodbye. Edward Gardner and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, they went to Kodak to get a second expert opinion, and Kodak basically said the same thing, that they're undoctored, but that we can't prove that they're photos of fairies. And then they went to a third company, Ilford, who reported that there was some evidence of faking, but that they couldn't really tell what it was, if it was post-production, if it was they had models or something. Eddie and Sir ACD were just like, we don't care. 2 out of 3 isn't so bad.
This is like the third or fourth story we've told where Arthur Conan Doyle plays like a central part in some really weird, like, crackpot fucking conspiracy. And I feel like maybe at some point we should just do a whole episode on this guy, because he was definitely eating off of lead painted china, I think.
Well, he was. And that's the thing, because people were like, well, if Sir ADC says it's real, then it must be real because he's so smart and so brilliant. I think this is a Thomas Edison situation where he wasn't actually writing it. Like, probably some woman was writing it, and he was just like, I'll publish it for you.
And then I'm going to spend all of your money on fucking magicians and pictures of fairies and just, like, dumb shit.
Because he's really just an idiot.
There's like not. We've never talked about him in a way that doesn't make him sound like a total fucking nutcase.
Well, not even a nutcase, just an idiot. Because there's some people in these stories that are nutcases, and he's just an idiot. He's just like, it's a picture of a fairy. It's real.
Oh my goodness, my guy.
It's like in the Middle Ages when people used to be like, well, that mouse came out from that rotten beef, so that means that rotten beef gave birth to that mouse. Like,
right?
Like, just because you saw some correlation does not equate causation.
What a freaking weirdo.
Anyways, so Edward Gardner, Eddie, he believed that the Wright family they were honest and respectable, and they weren't trying to dupe him or Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Like, he thought, these are nice people. They're not just trying to get a quick buck. They're trying to be polite. So he trumped off to Cottingham with 2 cameras at the end of July in 1920 to get more photos of fairies. Francis and Elsie insisted that the fairies wouldn't come out if there were anyone else with them. So he sent them with the 2 cameras and was like, you know what, go out on a nice day. The fairies probably won't come out if it's raining or if it's gross. So go out on a nice day, just relax, have fun, get some candid shots. And eventually they returned with 3 more photos depicting fairies. In the first one, Frances is shown in profile with a winged fairy close to her nose. The second, a fairy is shown either hovering or tiptoeing on a branch, offering Elsie a little bouquet of flowers. They took those pictures on the same day. 2 days later, they took their last picture, the fairies in their sunbath, which showed 3 slightly transparent fairies just kind of superimposed over the grass. Eddie and Sir ADC, they freaked out. They're like, this is proof. This is proof, mama, of some psychic phenomenon. It's physical. We can publish this. And so they added them to the Strand article. And to protect the girls, they actually gave them the pseudonyms Alice and Iris, and the family were called the Carpenters. The article just went into detail about the glamour and mystery that fairies added to the world. And Sir Arthur Conan Doyle hoped that this tangible evidence would open people's eyes to what was possible in the spiritualist world with psychic phenomenon.
Oh my god, this guy.
Well, and again, Edward Gardner, he's like, the fairies are evolving. So that means the humans are going to be evolving soon.
Yeah, maybe we've devolved, I think, honestly.
In December of 1920, so that year, the issue of Strand magazine went viral. It sold out immediately, and it was greeted with mixed reviews. At best, a lot of people were like, oh, these children are delightful and pure and so sweet and have such great imaginations. What a delightful group of girls. And at the worst, they were like, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle got duped by a couple of girl children. Absolutely the worst type of children. He is such an idiot. And then there were some people that thought the photos were real, but it was definitely a minority. And, you know, they were probably not. They're probably also eating the lead paint. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle used them again in 1921, and this time people just roasted him for not recognizing that the fairies were very close to traditional depictions of fairies from storybooks, but also mysteriously had fashionable Parisian hairstyles, like within the past few years of Parisian hairstyles.
I mean, hey, maybe the Fae read Vogue, like, you don't know.
They might.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what else did they have to do at this time?
I mean, it seems like all they do is frolic, so, like, why aren't they just reading the fashion magazines, too?
To be fair, that's a life, though, just to, like, snack and frolic and...
Right?
Chill out. You don't have to work. You're a fairy. You can fly off to France and get a new hairstyle.
Someday when I am old and have dementia, I hope that I just, like, I'm a fairy and just, like, frolic and eat cheese and just, like, fuck around and do Parisian hairstyles. That's, like, my second life when I've, like, truly lost all my marbles. That's what I'm hoping for myself.
I want to be one of those grandmas who, like, pretends they've lost their mind, but then, like, really has all their shit together. And then later I'm just like, I cut all of you out of my will. I'm donating all of my money to an animal rescue. I am of sound mind and body. I've just been pretending.
I just thought you were boring. I didn't want to talk to you.
I just wanted out of uncomfortable situations.
I didn't want to attend your shitty Thanksgiving feast.
I wanted to have my own with martinis and a charcuterie.
I wanted to eat cheese and pretend I was a fairy.
We got fashionable Parisian hairstyles and read Vogue.
I wonder if fairies eat cheese.
I bet they do. I feel like that's a thing they do.
Too. Yeah.
So anyways.
Anyway.
back to the story. So Eddie Gardner made his final trip to Cottingham in August of 1921 after this other, I think it was a book that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle had written, with an occultist, Geoffrey Hodson. The girls at this point, they were burnt out. They were much older. Elsie was 20 and Frances was about 14 at this point. And Geoffrey reported seeing tons of fairies all over. But the girls didn't really advertise that they had seen any. They're just like, oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure, there's a fairy over there. But again, this guy Hodson was like, there's a fairy, there's a fairy, there's a fairy. This isn't really important to anything. It just shows you that he was either not all there or was just making it up so people thought that he was psychic.
Right.
Eventually, the girls moved on with their lives and they got married, moved abroad, and they fell out of the public eye. Until 1966, when a reporter from the Daily Express newspaper tracked down Elsie, who at this point had moved back to England. And Elsie, she spilled the tea. She was like, these fairies, you know, they might have been figments of my imagination. But she kept the door open that she believed that somehow she had managed to photograph some psychic phenomenon, that these were her thoughts that she had gotten on camera. And she kept up this charade until about 1983, when she finally admitted in an interview that the fairies were fakes, that they were big fat frauds, and that she had copied illustrations of dancing girls from a popular children's book, drew wings on them, and then cut them out of cardboard. She had stuck those on hat pins, took the photos with her and Frances, and then disposed of the evidence in the stream so that no evidence was ever found of the fairies. Now, she said that these illustrations, they weren't just fakes, they were based heavily off of the actual fairies that she had actually seen, actually out in the stream.
Mm-hmm.
And
sure.
that her and Frances were in on this interview, and Frances actually disagreed with her and said the last photo was real, though. But they both claimed to have taken the photo, so what the experts think happened is that Elsie took a photo of the fake fairies, and then Frances took a photo of, like, the grass in it overexposed or something. So Frances was disproven when it was discovered that the fairies in that last photo actually lined up perfectly with an illustration of 3 girls in the book. Frances wrote to Elsie in 1983 that she hated those photographs from the age of 16 when Mr. Gardner presented me with a bunch of flowers and wanted me to sit on the platform at the Theosophical Society meeting with him. I realized what I was in for if I did not keep myself hidden. So basically, she knew even when she was a younger girl that if she didn't keep her mouth shut, that she was going to be in a world of hurt. She was going to break a lot of hearts.
She was sitting there like, I fear I have girl boss too close to the sun.
Exactly. And a lot of it was that they did not want to upset Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. They felt a lot of secondhand embarrassment for him, and they were kind of upset that such a brilliant man had been duped by 2 young village kids, girl children at that, so they decided to keep quiet. Frances passed in 1986 and Elsie passed in 1988. Prints and the original plates of the photos have actually gone for thousands of dollars at auction. I'm talking like some of them for tens of thousands of dollars.
Damn.
The moral of the story here is most people are big fat frauds, like that one guy that claimed to have seen fairies all over the place. Yeah, no, he was a big fat fraud, or he was on a lot of drugs. And almost everyone in the story was lying, and also that it's really embarrassing when someone who a lot of people have a lot of respect for gets so egregiously duped by 2 young children. For someone who was allegedly so brilliant, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was just so gullible. And like you said, like...
Oh, so fucking stupid.
There's so many stories of him just getting duped by... Some people were malicious. And like these girls, they... Really, it was just a situation where they had just gotten in too deep and they could not get out. And they didn't know how to say, well, actually, now that we think about it, these were maybe just paintings. It also goes to show you that as long as you're a rich white man, you can also be a stupid fucking idiot. And people will still respect you.
Amen. If that ain't the fucking truth. I feel a little bit bad for those girls because, you know, they got to a certain point where they're like, we're going to get our asses fucking whooped if we cop to this. So we just got to keep up the charade. And they had to be so stressed about it their whole entire life.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think when they were like adults, they could kind of let it go for a while, but then when the reporter found them again when they're 60 years old, they're just like, God damn it.
I thought I was over this shit.
It's just funny though that like people even later were still on the whole like, oh, the fairies could be real. It could be a real psychic phenomenon.
Yeah. Devan's story time.
Ooh. What are you gonna talk about?
So, speaking of liars and people making shit up, lying girl children, I also have a story that we're all very familiar with, but that I am going to regale you with again today. Not anything new, but like I found out some new to me information that was fucking hilarious to me about this entire event. Today we're going to give you like a real history lesson, and we're going to talk about the Salem Witch Trials. If you weren't a fan of the Crucible in high school, maybe just like skip forward about 30 minutes and then just get your tarot time in. But you know, we're going to talk about it anyway. Is it boring? Yeah, probably. But I feel like there's been a big uptick in people that are like getting into witchcraft recently. So like, hi, witch talk. We see you. I appreciate you. You're a majority of my For You page. Do I practice witch talk? Witchcraft? No. Do I collect shiny rocks? Yeah. Have I started to become a jar goblin? Also, yes. Because what if I do want to start getting into herbalist stuff? I need to have the jars available. So, I've got one toe in.
Also, I think it goes with being said that even if you did hate the Crucible, maybe just stick around for a few minutes because the Crucible was
a very boring retelling of the story. So yeah, we're going to talk about the original baddies of North American witchcraft. Well, I should say the original baddies of white North American witchcraft, because if you want to like go down the herbalist road, like native practices were a thing far before these people. So anyway, getting to our story. So, as most of us know, this whole fucking shit show, it starts to unfold in 1692. However, prior to the events of the witch trials, the area of Salem was just like rife with petty assholes. Like basically at this time we have two Salems. There's what's called Salem Village, and then we have Salem Town. And the two communities fucking hated each other. Pretty much from the onset, these two like factions were in just constant disputes with each other over like property lines and grazing rights and then different church matters. So much so that in 1672, the villagers had voted to hire a minister of their own. So Salem Village is like, fuck these townies, village supremacy, so we're going to get our own minister separate from Salem Towns. At the time, this is a huge fucking deal because the church is like your entire, basically, I don't want to say, it's not their governing system, but it might as well be, because they're such puritanical communities. God first, my guy. And who speaks for God? The minister. So they get their own minister. Their first two that they hire only stay on for a short time each and then leave because a congregation fails to pay them. One of these ministers subsequently ends up being arrested and hanged as a witch in August of 1692. So we skipped ahead a little bit for that, but these people are petty and bitter, obviously. The third minister, Samuel Parris, he comes to town after the parishioners finally agree to pay the men and grant him some land. However, this dude could not settle the new parishioners' disputes either, and he actually ends up making things worse because what he does is he deliberately seeks out bad behavior in his congregation and then makes a bunch of his congregation suffer through public punishments for really small infractions. This only ends up contributing significantly to the tension that's already happening within this community. Maybe, just maybe, these people are so fucking pious and bitchy because at this point, not only are they just constantly feuding with their neighbors, but in New England at this time, it was also historically cold AF. Literally, this period of time in American history between 1680 and 1730, and actually this could have been global, I don't know if it was just North America, but it was literally the coldest period of time on record that we have, and it's actually called the Little Ice Age. So basically it's just several decades where it's just cold as balls out all the time, and these people just have to be freaking miserable.
Yeah. Wasn't it like a minor ice age caused by like a volcanic eruption or something?
Something like that. Yeah, I didn't get it too far into the science of it, but that sounds right. They are ruled by puritanical beliefs, and then on top of all this, you've got people that are cold and mad. You got people that are pious and mad, and you got people that are mad because they're hungry, because the settlements in the area, they had suffered a failure of their wheat crops because of the weather, and because I'm assuming maybe they're also eating lead paint. I don't know. That is going to play a huge part in this as well. So they're cold, they're hungry, they hate their neighbors, and their religion is very they're just like constantly looking to point fingers at each other. So long story short, times are tough. People are just like waiting for the right thing to piss them off so they can really just start some shit. Enter Betty Paris, age 9, and her cousin Abigail Williams, who is 11. Betty, she just so happens to be the daughter of Samuel Paris, so the minister that's stirring up all this fucking drama in town, which is very fitting. She clearly loves the drama as well. In February of 1692, these girls start to have fits described as beyond the power of epileptic fits or natural disease by John Hale, who was a minister of a nearby town and also apparently on-call doctor man. The girls, they're screaming, they're throwing shit around the room. They're making these strange noises, crawling under furniture, like contorting themselves into weird positions. The girls, they also complain about being pinched and pricked with pins. Soon, other young women in the village, they begin to exhibit similar behaviors. I can only assume it's because they see that these girls are getting attention. They're like, no, daddy, me. And so they want attention. All this is going down. The girls have gone mad, and while attending church services at Salem Meeting House, all these afflicted girls would routinely just like interrupt church services with these like weird outbursts, which kind of sounds like possession a little bit. If we're going to do the religious thing, why is that not what we left to instead of witchcraft? I don't know. But like also I have a feeling maybe this is like misogyny fueled preteen girl angst, and these are just like the original riot girls. I don't know. Answers, we got none, but we got more story ahead. Eventually, these like godly men and women of the community, they come to the conclusion that it has to be the work of witches. Again, why not demonic possession? Why witches? Who knows? Apparently, these girls, they are being targeted and made to act a fool. So they like, all these people got to hop up on their Jesus stallions and go on a witch hunt to like put an end to this. Of course, as we established, the people of Salem, they are petty kings and queens, and thus begins all of the finger pointing. The first 3 people accused and arrested for witchcraft affecting the young girls were Sarah Goode, Sarah Osborne, and a slave woman named Tituba. Their accuser, her name is Ann Putnam Jr., and she's like likely one of history's biggest bitches. Sometimes I read my notes and I'm like, the fact that I passed college and this is like how I write is literally like a Valley girl is writing notes, and then so I feel like I just need to read it the way I'm writing it. At this point, I think we can all agree that Ann Putnam is just like a big bitch. And so a lot of the history behind her accusations point to the fact that there was like a major personal family beef that might have been like a major cause of these witch trials. And Anne basically would just point her finger at people on the wrong side of this feud between the Putnam and the Porter families. Over the year period that these trials take place, this absolute fucking madwoman, she ends up personally accusing 62 people of witchcraft. And like for context, this isn't just like a battle over someone's lawn being too long. Often Salem residents, due to this family feud, would have heated debates that escalated into like full-fledged street fights based solely on their opinion of which family was in the right. Enough of that haggard bitch for now. We're over her. Ann Putnam sucks. The accused, Sarah Goode, she is a poor woman, not just in the fact that we pity her, but she is also financially fucked. And she is accused of witchcraft because of her reputation around town, we can only assume. So at her trial, she was accused of rejecting the Puritan ideals that everyone else held, basically, of like self-control and discipline. And I love her for this, she chooses to spend her days scorning the children of the town, just like bitterly walking around, just being like, I fucking hate kids. And like, they say that she scorns the children instead of leading them towards a path of salvation. So basically, her crimes that lead her to be accused of witchcraft is that she is poor and she doesn't like children. TBH, she would fit right in with today's millennial crowd, so she would be in good company. Then we have Sarah Osborne, and she rarely attends church meetings, so she's accused of witchcraft because the Puritans believed that the Osbornes had self-interest in mind, following her remarriage to an indentured servant. She was thought to be like a little impure, like she had remarried, which was like a weird thing in their society, and so the citizens of the town disapproved of her trying to control her son's inheritance from that first marriage by getting married to a new man. How dare she like to sleep in on Sundays and then remarry for love after her husband, I think, dies. I think that's the only way that she would have been able to remarry in this society. So, blasphemy.
So far they just sound relatable. They don't sound...
Right? They're like the only normal ones in town, so of course they're going to get accused of witchcraft. And so then the last of the first three accused is obviously Tituba. She is an enslaved woman from the West Indies whose race and religious practices were different than these white colonists, of course. They accuse her of witchcraft. She's accused because I guess Abigail and Betty, the original two Mad Girls, they had these stories that they would go out and like Tituba would entertain them, and she would like, you know, do a bit of fortune telling and would tell these stories about enchantment, about sexual encounters with demons, which that sounds like a little much. I can't imagine she would have told children that kind of stories. Maybe she would. I don't know. Also, she was guilty because she would sway the minds of men. So basically, she was a hot baddie that was into tarot reading, which again, super relatable.
This girl that's accusing them, she doesn't sound like, if we're talking about like teen drama stuff, she doesn't sound like Regina George. She sounds like the ugly bitch off to the side that's just jealous that everyone else is getting attention. So she's like, you know what?
Yep.
This lady annoyed me. Off with her head. Like, she's definitely got horse girl energy. I say that as a horse girl.
Oh, yes. She's got big horse girl energy.
Or like wolf girl.
Yeah, she like barks at you on the playground. That's Ann Putnam. Ann Putnam is the original wolf girl, for which all future wolf girls are apparently modeled
and descended.
So yeah, Ann Putnam, you bitch. So, anyways, from this point, we've got these three ladies. They're accused of witchcraft, and at this point, the hysteria over the witches just, it spreads like wildfire because everyone, like we established in Salem, is an asshole, and this has this like puritanical culture. So everyone is like, I want to be the most godly, and I can't be accused of witchcraft, so I have to accuse someone else of witchcraft so that I don't get accused of witchcraft. And honestly, they probably are just really bored as well because, again, they're Puritans, and what are they going to do in 1692 but point the finger and be like, maybe we'll get a public hanging this week, and that'll be the excitement.
It's like the Real Housewives of Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah. Yeah. Ann Putnam is definitely cast as the villain in this one. We've got these three ladies, the original ones. They are brought before local magistrates, and they're questioned while their accusers appeared in the courtroom in like this Oscar-worthy fit of spasms and contortions. So like all these little girls that are like saying witchcraft, witchcraft, they're all just like having fake seizures on the floor of the courtroom, just like putting on the show of the century. And Putnam's probably in the corner just like doing the evil finger tapping thing, like just watching this all unfold. During these trials, Sarah and Sarah, both of our Sarahs, they deny their guilt because they're good Christian women. Of course they're going to deny being witches. And also, they aren't fucking witches. They both end up being hanged. They don't really go to trial. They're just like, no, you two bitches are lying, so off with your head. Or, you know, I guess we're not going to chop your head off, but we're going to hang you by your neck. Tituba, she's like a thinker, I think. And so she's quite smart because she ends up confessing because she sees that if she confesses, she's going to get off of a death penalty somehow, and she can act as like a confidential informer or whatever. So she's like, fudge these fluffing colonists and their racist bullshit. And she starts claiming that there's other witches acting alongside her in service of the devil against the Puritans, which like fully stirs the pot in town, and honestly good for her because like this saves her own butt. And then she's like, if you guys are going to point the finger at me, I'm going to point 10 back right at you. So she might as well just sink the ship with her if she's going to have to go down for this. Tituba saying that she is in league with the devil, and so are a handful of other people, only adds even further fuel to the fire, and it spreads through the community and beyond just Salem into the rest of Massachusetts. And so from here, a number of others are accused, including Martha Corey, Rebecca Nurse, like people we're familiar with from the Crucible, both of which are regarded as like super upstanding members of church and community. And then, in the fucking horror of all horrors, Sarah Goode, who was hanged in those initial trials, her 4-year-old daughter is accused of witchcraft and gets sent to the freaking pokey. This toddler is accused of being in league with the devil, and I swear, like, lead paint had to have been a thing back then, because they're all eating the chips. Like, permanent cases of the dum-dums from all people involved, I swear.
Well, no, back then they were just putting in everything. Like lead makeup, they would have lead in their medicine. Lead paint, definitely, but they would just be like, yeah, I got a touch of the dropsy, so now I'm gonna eat some lead.
Like Tituba, several of the accused witches, they see that they can get off from being murdered if they start naming other people to save their own ass. And so soon these trials, they start to overwhelm the local justice system, because basically their justice system is just like, we're going to go to church and the magistrate's just going to be like, oh, I guess we'll find out. Like, I'll just make my own fucking judgment. In these town halls where they're accusing everyone, it's like a he said, she said nightmare. And like, basically, if you didn't like someone, you just call them a witch and then they're like, taken care of. They're really just like overwhelming the local government. So in May of 1692, so this is 4 months from the original accusations, the newly appointed governor in Massachusetts, William Phips, which is a stupid name, William Phips. So remember this guy, he's going to come back later, but he orders the establishment of special courts specifically designated to rule on witchcraft cases in the area. These courts then handed down their first convictions against Bridget Bishop on June 2nd, so it doesn't take long for them to start dealing with shit. And so she is hanged 8 days later on what would have been, or would become, if you're familiar with Salem at all, Gallows Hill. It's where Bridget is hanged. 5 more people are hanged that July, 5 in August, 8 more in September. In addition, 7 others accused of witchcraft die in jail during this time. And then the elderly man, again, we're familiar with from the Crucible, Giles Corey, he is pressed to death with stones after he refuses to enter a plea in his arraignment at all. He's just like, I'm not answering to this bullshit. Like, I don't have to prove anything to you. Fucking kill me. I'm 80 years old. It's 1692. I'm not long for this world anyway. Gross fact, as convicted witches, the accused would have been excommunicated from their churches and thus denied proper burials. As soon as the bodies of the accused were cut down from the trees, they were basically thrown into a shallow grave, and then the crowd would disperse. Because apparently, like we established, when you're living in colonial times, the only form of entertainment is to just play with sticks and then watch public executions. So maybe that's why we're all just pointing fingers for witchcraft. But anyway, after the hangings, the families of the dead would often reclaim the bodies after dark and then just buried them in like unmarked graves on family property. Of course, we know these trials are just like a load of poop. What happens is you get accused of witchcraft. From there, you're carted away to the pokey to await trial and then be basically publicly coerced into a confession in the meantime. Before you even get to trial, there's like these fucking examinations where they're like, you're a witch, and you just have to be like, no, I'm fucking not, I promise, oh my god, don't hang me. And so after you're going through all that crap, if you don't die awaiting trial, when you finally get to the courtroom, it's basically a circus where the evidence is made up and the points don't matter. So, like, who fucking cares? One of the wilder pieces of evidence that was used in these courtrooms to, like, prove or disprove the witchcraft was spectral evidence. Quote unquote, ghosts and demons would talk through the afflicted in court. Often the afflicted are also the accusers. So during the trials, these accusers would give testimony that an accused witch's spirit appeared to them in a dream or a vision, or they would be like speaking in tongues or whatever. And so sometimes these spirits might appear to them as an animal, like a black cat or a wolf. That cat or that wolf just looked like a Sarah, I guess. Like, I don't know how you fucking know. Then this dream or these fucking comments they're making are just admitted as evidence in court. It's just so dumb.
Like I said, wolf girl.
Wolf girl energy for sure. They're like, I saw the spirit of a wolf, and that wolf's name was Sarah Goode. They would also do what was called a touch test. If the accused witch touched the victim while the victim was having a fit, speaking in tongues, having these freaking convulsions or whatever. And if the fit stopped, that meant that the accused person was the person that put the spell on the afflicted victim. That seems super legit, of course. In one instance, the magistrate gathers up all of the currently accused people after reciting a prayer and then blindfolds all of the accused. And then they're forced to go basically into this mosh pit of afflicted girls who are just like falling into fits and crying out. And meanwhile, they're blindfolded. So they're like walking around like with their hands up like, oh my God, get me out of here. Of course, they would like touch the afflicted girls and they would immediately come out of their fit because they live for the drama. We know this. And then that identifies the person touching them as being the witch that put the curse on them. So this evidence, apparently, this whole circumstance, this fucking weirdo mosh pit, is enough to cause the arrest of, I think, like 18 more men and women. So warrants go out for 18 more people based on these touch tests. So they're just like immediately taken into custody. That is how the touch test works, which is so dumb. And honestly, it reminds me, did you ever play the game Ghost in the Graveyard as a kid? It's like Tag, but in the dark.
Yeah.
It's like a really fucked up version of that game, basically. And then there's also a practice of looking for quote-unquote witches' marks on the accused, where they would pretty much just strip search the accused in front of the judge, the jury, and the public, looking for these marks on their body. And in the minds of these Puritans, the marks themselves could be disguised as birthmarks. They could be a wart or a mole or any sort of like outstanding swelling or discoloration of the skin was suspected as being a witch's mark. And so like even red spots and bumps under the tongue or like in your no-no square might be a witch's mark, which like I would be so fucked because I'm a very freckly, very moly person. So I got witch's marks aplenty, my guy.
Well, they also thought it was like, it was called a witch's tit, and they thought that's where the witch like suckled her familiar.
Yeah. As they're doing these examinations, when they would come across like a mark that they suspected to be evil, they had this examining tool, which was basically like a large, long, like sharp object. And so they would like poke the spots. Usually this instrument was supposed to be sharp, like a pin or a needle. And if the area of the body did not bleed when it was poked, it was designated as a witch's mark. Come to find out later, a lot of these so-called sharp objects were actually very blunt or dull, so they would not have drawn blood. And so out of fear, people in town started cutting off any warts or moles that they had or any other bumps. However, this didn't help at all because all it's doing is creating scarring where that mole used to be, and thus leading people to believe that that scar is now your witch's mark. So you are fucked either way.
Well, and if it's a wart, like when you poke warts, even if it's a sharp object, they don't always bleed because they're like a really thick, or if it's like a callus or
yeah, it's just like such an arbitrary, stupid test. Like, and I understand it's 1692. The next test, one we're probably all familiar with hearing about, is called the float test. They'd grab these ladies out of their cell, hog tie them, and then toss them into the water. And if they float, that means they're a witch. We don't apparently understand what buoyancy means at this point. And then if they sink, they're innocent, but also very much drowned and dead. So like our bad kind of moment for them, I guess. We've got one more horseshit method here. And that was they would ask the accused to recite the Lord's Prayer, which for most people in Puritan culture was super easy. But for one of the women accused, Anne Glover, who was an Irish immigrant, she only knew the Lord's Prayer in Latin because she was Roman Catholic. And so it didn't matter that she didn't know the words because she didn't know them in English. So she knew the prayer, she just couldn't recite it in English. And so to the gallows she went. Those tests, that's like obviously just the things that are done publicly to these women. So like jail obviously isn't a freaking vacay either. The jail was rat infested. It is filthy. And the accused are often bound with cords and irons for just months. It was obviously cold. It is a dungeon. Of course, it smells like shit because they're bound and just pooping in buckets. And they're kept basically in total darkness. But the dungeons are also, they're located near the North River, which during high tide would flood the cells. So the water would come in like rising to the prisoners' ankles. So it's just cold, it's dark, it's damp. I will say, however, if you were having to like shit where you stand, I would be kind of grateful for the times that it flooded and kind of like washed all that shit away. They're also subjected while in jail to just like these unending examinations and just excommunication from the church. And of course they're tortured too, like obviously by hog-tying them. So what they would do is they hog-tie the feet to their necks until blood would drip from their eyes and nose, which is disgusting. And then others are made to stand for long periods in stocks and just like be publicly ridiculed. And then for people who tried to escape, if they were caught, they are immediately executed, no trial given. That all sucks, but even if you're executed, it's not free, baby. For those who are executed, there's a really hefty hangman's fee that the parents, or not the parents, the family, I guess the parents, family, same different. Anyway, the family is expected to pay a hangman's fee. They are legally obligated to pay that, and it's for corpse removal, even though, as we've established, all I do is cut them down and throw them into a shallow grave. That's kind of horseshit. Anyways, let's assume you're charged as a witch, you make it through the trials, and you're proven innocent, all of which are like very hard to do. Well, you're going to rack up a tab while you're in jail. So literally every small item, your food, your clothing, literally they charge you rent for your cell. You also had to pay anytime you had one of those examinations, be it like the float test, heaven forbid you get float tested, they charge you for that, or for looking for the witch's mark, they charge you those fees for those medical examinations. Anything you use or do in jail is added to your tab. So even if you are proven innocent, you can't leave jail until you repay this tab.
This sounds like an MLM.
It does. It's like LuLaRoe on crack.
It's like, if you get 5 of your closest friends and accuse them of witchcraft, then we can help build a new road.
God, what a pyramid scheme. We are in girl boss hell at this point. Of those accused, there are 114 people arrested, and they're held for many, many months in various jails. 43 end up going to trial. 27 are convicted and sentenced to death. 19 are hanged. 1 is pressed, Giles Corey, we talked about him earlier. And then dozens more die in prison, including 2 nursing infants of jailed women. 2 of the accused, who are later found innocent, end up being too poor to pay their jail fees, and they have to sell themselves into indentured servitude just to be able to be released from jail. How does it all finally come to an end? Pretty fucking unceremoniously, given all of the dramatics. That governor we talked about earlier, William Phipps, we remember him, of course. So he's the one that establishes the court on witchcraft, right, call back to earlier. Well, he had been like sort of present during the onslaught of the witch trials. He establishes these courts, but thinking he has his friends holding the reins, his boys have it in control, he decides he's going to fuck off to Maine and go help build some forts for a while. So, of course, communication is difficult. You have to send letters. That's going to take quite some time. So eventually, when he returns to the area in September of 1962, he learns that even his own wife has been accused of witchcraft and is like, hold up, you guys. Oh, what? What the hell has happened here? You're like, you had one job. What the hell? He ends up on October 12th of that year drafting a letter shutting down the special court, officially ending the Salem Witch Trials. However, that doesn't completely stop it. And there's a lot more rudimentary trials held through May of that year in 1963. So the local church people kind of take it upon themselves to continue doing witch trials, even though it's not being not federally, but upheld by the state. Given the QAnon half decade that we've all had, I don't feel like it's hard to see how something like this could get so fucking out of hand. For example, we had literally hordes of QAnoners in Dallas just recently thinking that a fucking dead brother of a president was going to reappear. It was JFK Jr.
No, it's his
so
son.
It would, or not brother, son of a dead son of a dead president.
They thought that JFK was going to come back too. A president who was literally assassinated on film. They thought that he was going to come back and that he was going to grant Donald Trump and JFK Jr. the presidency because that's his right. But it's JFK was a Democrat.
Yeah, honestly, nothing that the QAnoners do surprises or shocks me at this point anymore because all of it is just so marvelously stupid.
Talk about lead paint, baby.
There's nothing that shocks me. Talk about lead paint babies. Jesus. Of course, it's back to the witch trials. It's like not hard to see how something can get that out of hand, especially when there's like no modern science and your society is ruled by the patriarchy and the Bible. Like, no facts are present here. So once the ball gets rolling, the group, I think, just like has this weird groupthink thing happening and everyone's pointing fingers and like believing it's happening. But how the hell like does this even start? So there are a few theories. None of them particularly solid. First of which is that it is simply just a case of mass hysteria. Specifically, this is what the historians used to say. I don't think it's much upheld anymore. This mass hysteria was brought on by attacks from the natives. So, of course, I think that this is bull. Like, if anything, this mass hysteria is being brought on by that cold weather we had talked about, the constant community infighting that they're having, and then, like, food supply shortage. Based off of what I was reading, the whole Indian attack thing seems like it's brought up in the early 1700s by the settlers, and it seems like they were just looking for, like, something or someone to blame their actions on. So they came up with the story that they were, like, having this big, like, community mental health crisis brought on by an attack by Native Americans. Another theory that's not so popular is that it was an active demonic possession, but, like, I don't really buy into that either, like, at least not on this scale. But the last theory that I'll get into is my favorite and why I chose this in the first place. And it involves drugs, baby. Remember what I said earlier about the wheat crop failure and then the unusually cold weather? Well, the settlers, they still got to eat. So they had to substitute something for wheat. And what did they have available in abundance? Rye. They have loads of rye. But this rye crop is very special, because due to the weather that year, they had a very harsh winter and a very damp spring. The rye grains had developed this particular fungi, and this fungi contain lysergic acid, which, fun fact, is a key component in the manufacturing of everyone's favorite psychedelic, LSD. When getting litty on rotten rye, you don't call it a trip, you call it ergotism, or if you've ever heard the phrase St. Anthony's fire, it's basically LSD trip brought on by rye poisoning. This causes severe convulsions, muscle spasms, delusions, the sensation of crawling under the skin, and severe hallucinations, all of which sound a lot like what the girls were suffering with. The thing about this sickness, the St. Anthony's fire, is that it mostly affects people with a weaker immune system, which would explain why mostly younger girls whose immune systems were not fully developed yet were falling victim. The village doctor, being the religious sort, the theory goes that he's unaware of this disease and attributed the strange symptoms to a known evil, which to him was witchcraft. Realistically, if you want my opinion on how this all happened, I think the whole episode is caused by like a little of column C here, so all the Salemites getting just like unwittingly just high as balls on LSD and having a panic about these hallucinations and convulsions, and then borrowing like a sprinkle from column A where the acid trips being had by the children is triggering this like weird mass hysteria where all these already sour ass villagers are ready to fight one another and just like place blame on what's happening to their kids on their neighbors.
Also, I want to offer a theory that very similar to the girls in the last story, that they might have started out with like the ergotism poisoning, and then they realized that they were in too deep and they couldn't go back, or else they would get caught in the lie. They'd get caught in the bit.
Yeah, that's a very good point to bring up as well. Like, especially in like they're seeing all these women being like tried and hanged for crimes that they're not committing. Like, can you imagine how fucking scared you would be to be like, I was lying this whole time?
Yeah. Or like, I was high on balls the first time.
Yeah. I was just high as shit.
I was just saying stuff.
I didn't know what to think.
I didn't know what I was saying, but
imagine. Just imagine a whole community of Puritan colonists just high as balls because they're eating bread. There was also this thing called a witch's cake, which I should have mentioned earlier, in which they take the urine from the afflicted person and they mix it with rye to make a witch's cake, and then they feed it to dogs, and somehow that helps to determine if witchcraft has played a part in their actions. I like to think that the dog was just like, this is made out of piss and rotten rye. That is why I don't want to eat it.
Yeah, probably more like that. They probably sniff it like, mm-mm.
Yeah.
Although, I don't know. I've seen dogs eat some weird shit before.
Moral of the story, witch's cake is piss and rye. So if anyone offers you a witch's cake, say no. But anyway, so nowadays in Salem, there's like a memorial, obviously, to those that were killed during the trials. And despite its like brutal history with magic, obviously now it's like one of the top destinations for like witchy goth folk and for Halloween enthusiasts. So like we've really come full circle and just went from like embrace or like hanging and murdering people accused of witchcraft. And now like I bet there's probably per capita the most metaphysical stores like in the United States, probably in Salem. Really just like fully embracing that monetizing tragedy thing.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, as for the witch trials themselves, like, clearly lessons were not learned because although the villagers and Salem townies, they do end up issuing apologies in the decades after the trial. Again, they ended up blaming en masse hysteria due to Indian attacks. I think they're just trying to cover their own asses. But witch hunts are still a thing in the United States up until 1878 when the last witch is burned in the United States, and it's a woman named Lucretia Brown. And can you guess where this happened?
I'm going to guess Alabama.
12 miles from Salem. So these people never fucking got over it. They're still hanging people in 1878. Or I guess she wasn't hanged. She was burned. Which I was surprised because for some reason a lot of like the imagery and stuff that we have about witch trials is that they are burnt at the stake. But nobody during the original Salem witch trials was burnt at the stake. They were all hung at the gallows. So.
I think that's more for like European witches. They're just like, yeah, let's burn them. It definitely didn't happen as much as people think. Like they did all the weird tests and usually they would just drown them or hang them. Or they would just die from exposure because they'd be like, true, if you're a witch, you won't get cold, but if you're a human, you'll just freeze and die of hypothermia because, you know.
We've got you in this musty, dusty, old fucking cell that's being flooded with gross river water constantly, so.
Yeah.
Anyways, that is the story of the Salem Witch Trials. So, you're welcome for the history refresh, everyone.
I would say it's a better retelling than The Crucible.
Thank you. That is so kind. It's tarot time. Baby, it's tarot time. Let's find out what's gonna happen this week.
Alright, so we have the Ace of Swords reverse, which this is like unclear expectations that you're having. Like, you have an idea of something, but it's not very clear. There is a Queen of Wands who's sort of like a very assertive, like very direct female sort of energy coming in. Or a fire sign. There is the Two of Pentacles reverse. So that fire sign is not balancing their expectations very well. The expectations aren't maybe that clear. Ace of Wands reverse, which is like the end of something. Probably because with the Ten of Wands, you are just like overloaded with everything that's going on. So what you need to do is just take a moment to relax. Just with the Four of Swords, just take a little nap. Take a little day off. A sick day, maybe.
It's a no bones day, baby.
Yeah. Four Swords is big no bones energy. So with that, I think that's our tarot reading. Like, you might feel like you're not balancing stuff. You might feel like you're overloaded, but just take a no bones day and everything's going to be chill, baby.
That's beautiful. All right. So I do have a couple of fuck yous for the week. First of which, obviously, Ann Putnam. Second of which is QAnon, specifically the QAnoners of Dallas. And the third of which is a bicycle seat that I sat on approximately 4 weeks ago and that I'm fairly positive fractured my tailbone, and I'm still feeling the ramifications of that today. So my ass hurts.
Tailbone injuries are no joke. I broke my tailbone when I was 5 years old, and I still sometimes wake up and I'm like, my butt hurts.
Mm-hmm. Literally, it was so embarrassing. We were at Dick's because we were looking at bikes because my husband wants to get into bikes. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to sit on this one. And I sit down on it, barely sit down on it. And I feel like a sharp pain in my ass. I was like, whoa. And so I just like immediately got up and I was like, that kind of hurt. That was not a comfortable seat. And then ever since that day, I have just like a weird pain in my butt. So that bike seat specifically, that is on my list of fuck yous for the week.
I would have to say, what were mine? Mine was Dave Hollis, which I told Devan about, but he's like a self-help guru. He was married to Rachel Hollis. They're divorced now. She's the one that wrote Girl Wash Your Face, and she's also a joke. But he told his 4-year-old on a stream where he is begging people to buy his book because he doesn't have a job, that they need to buy his book because it'll change their lives. And he spent the past 18 weeks working on this. But he told his 4-year-old daughter, who's mixed, who's a foster child, to get a life. Because he, like, wouldn't feed her breakfast. And she's like, Daddy, can I just have more vitamins? Because I'm hungry. And these are gummy vitamins. And I'm hungry. And you're not making breakfast for an hour and a half.
Oh, my God.
And then he apologized for the stream. But he did not apologize for telling his daughter to get a life.
Jesus.
And, like, ignoring his other children.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
I feel like I had one more, but I don't remember what it was.
But yeah, one more FU, actually. So we had a Instagram follower who was using our Instagram page to troll for women and sending them foul messages. So we F that guy. I don't know your real name. I know your Instagram handle. I called you out on our story. But screw you, dude.
I also messaged the guy that stole one of our followers' Instagrams. I messaged him off of our account because he kept messaging us. I said something like, get fucked dickwad or something. Give our follower back her account.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that.
Girl, we got you. It's the same girl. Like, this poor person just keeps getting the shit bags off of our Instagram account. I'm so sorry, girlfriend. Love you. Sorry that came your way. But with the FUs out of the way, I will go ahead, if it's okay, wrap up the episode here. So thank you for listening, you guys. Again, keep in mind we're on that, delayed schedule. We're doing every other week. I think, did we decide we're taking December? Yeah. We're just calling December a wash. And okay, December, don't expect any new content. We'll be back in the new year, but we're going to spend some time with our families and, do some life stuff that month. So, maybe 1, maybe 2 more episodes before Christmas time rolls around. Anyway, that being said, thank you for listening. We love you, and you know where to find everything in the descriptions, in the comments, blah, 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 whatever, blah, blah, blah. You're smart, you figured it out. Fuck it. Okay, guys, I will see you next time. Bye.